Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to another movie review in anticipation for Borat's subsequent movie film. We're going to be reviewing the first one, so Cultural Learnings of America for Make Benefit Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan. That is going to be the only time that I read the title out in full. This was kind of like a last-minute thing because it was actually kind of a last-minute announcement that another Borat film was happening. There's been rumors for years. I think we've always wanted one, and as the years have gone on, I still can't believe this movie came out in 2006, the first one. It's mad. But we are less than 24 hours away now from a new Borat film, and we wanted to take a look back, go over the first one. We've both recently rewatched it. We want to say if we think it holds up, if it's just as edgy now, if it's more relevant now maybe than even it was back in 2006. So we don't really have a plan for this review. We don't have a structure. It's going to be a very sort of like open discussion. But usually we always sort of start with the first time that we watch this thing. And that's actually kind of hazy to me because Borat as a character has just sort of always been in the sort of like the collective consciousness from that midpoint to the late 2000s. But I do know that it was a long time, and I think you're similar with this, George. It was a long time since you watched it.
Yeah. Before I get into it, I need to do the social. Sorry, that's my bad. I forgot. So we'll get into Borat very shortly. But as we said, this was last minute. We didn't know Borat 2 was happening. Mm-hmm. There's been incredible marketing. You may have seen news homepages actually talking about a political sting they've done. So it's going to be very, very contextual, I think, this year. And as usual, we're going to do our review. We don't know when. Probably Monday, Tuesday. We don't know. But if you do want to know, the best way to find out is going to be finding us on Facebook at Cinema Savvy and on Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, because we always post in advance of when we're going to do stuff. So it's the best way to find out what we're doing. And if you don't already have us on YouTube, obviously do like, comment, share, subscribe. It helps us reach our goals. And if you want to find out when we are going live, if you press the alert notification, it tends to drop you a text sort of 30 minutes before we go live. So you'll get that. And then we also have our TeePublic link, which is in the description below. I'm actually wearing ours today, not intentionally. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. But anyway, so I'm the kind of same as you. First time watching Borat, I just remember Borat himself. And I'm not going to say the sketch because I didn't know of him before the film. But I just remember, it was definitely in 2006. I can't tell you when in 2006, but there was mankinis everywhere. There was the very nice everywhere. There was the flags everywhere. There was so much things happening, but it was all about this weird man in a suit with a mustache and hair. And Sacha Baron Cohen became Borat to the rest of the world. For those who hadn't already seen Ali G, for those that hadn't seen his other stuff, myself included, he was Borat to me before he was Sacha Baron Cohen. Obviously now it's very different. One of the masters of comedy. We'll get into that later on. But I can't honestly tell you that's the first time I saw this. I just remember seeing it. I probably saw it a couple of times. And it is a film where you see it over the years. I don't know if it's one of the ITV2 specials. It is on TV a decent amount of time, but I think it's a film that it's not overstayed its welcome. It's the opposite. It's like a delight to have. And it's incredible coming back to a certain older age where before we get into the meat of it, not the fact it holds up, this is an Oscar-nominated film.
So this was news to me literally about 5 minutes before we hit live. You told me this, and this is true. This was at the, the 79th Academy Awards. It was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, which blew my mind. But as you said, like it was a sketch before, so technically it is adapted. That was news to me. So that's amazing.
Yeah. So let's really talk about this. So I know we don't really remember the first time. I'm going to talk about watching it recently because I was really skeptical going into this. I actually rewatched Bruno yesterday as well, which is a shame we couldn't do a Bruno review. Again, we had no time this film was coming out. We literally, throwing this in was sort of quick enough. But I was really worried about watching it because it's happened, I think, maybe to both of us, maybe to a lot of people. You've got this comedy that you love, and you've loved it for many years. But you reach an age where you don't watch it because you're worried that it might not hold up. What you once loved could actually be terrible. And it does happen to us. It happens to the best of us. And I was worried. And then I put this on a couple of weeks back. And within sort of 5 minutes now, this is still incredible today. But I think one really big thing I took away from it was that, and I've kind of said this, it's the same with Bruno because I was watching that last night, so I'm going to keep actually talking about that. When you watch these films, sort of, 14 years ago, I was 10. So you're not really the right age to watch it. You get it. You get most of it. Not all of it, but you get the gist. But it's really funny because here's this weird Kazakhstani guy who's a weirdo that can't interact. There's a chicken on the subway. There's the radio that goes wrong. There's this and that. at that age it's funny, but you're not processing the real comedy of it. So as I've sort of got older, and this hit me certainly more so recently, I started realizing that this isn't just funny. He targets these people for specific reasons. The goal of Sacha Baron Cohen, he wants to expose people for comedy by bringing out the worst kinds of them, and it's everything you can have. And I think that's why he is, to me. I mean, I think, is he Cambridge educated? Like, he's got like, he's a very
really
smart individual.
guy.
Yeah. You think, why is he doing this kind of film? And because that's exactly what he wants to. He wants to not be funny for the sake of it, but he wants to get the worst out of people for them to be seen. And I think Borat, considering this is 2006. Look at where we are in 2020 with current political climate. That's why there's a Borat 2, because of the current political climate. Is it Pence's name's in the title of the new one, which we'll read out in the review, probably to leave it at that. But I think he's a genius, and that's what I came at. I loved him before, and we've always had this discussion. It would have been the incredible, not Freddy Krueger, Freddie Mercury. Very different.
It'd be an incredible Freddy Krueger, I'm sure, as well.
But like, do you see what I mean? Like that, there's something about him that is not just so likable. Like he's harmless because I think morally he is in the right. And I know that's strange because he's trying to set up and humiliate people, and some of them are unfair. But it's just satire, and it's done right, and it's not too in your face. Something that's funny at one age and it's smarter the next. So that was a really big takeaway. It felt like watching it for the first time, and then ended up watching it again like a week after because it's just so funny still.
Yeah, I'd say definitely in recent times this film's way more relevant now, definitely, and I'm sure the second one will be as well, judging from what we've seen in the trailer. And yeah, you're absolutely right in that. I mean, there is a very sort of like loose plot to this film, and I have heard that the second one does have more of a plot as like an actual movie plot to it. This one does seem like very sort of separate, candid camera segments all the way through, precisely done to point fingers at sort of like the ugly side of America. You've got the kind of redneck side of things as well. A whole walks of life, all different walks of life in America. The good, the bad, and sort of like the in-between. And I think it's done brilliantly because he is kind of a buffoon of a character, lovable buffoon, but then it does sort of like point the finger at everything that's going on in the current climate. I think the second one's going to do way more of a job than that. I think it's going to be definitely... Well, it was filmed during lockdown, so they've got the coronavirus in there. They've got everything with Trump in there. Just when we needed Borat the most, he comes back out of the woodwork and we get a sequel for it. So I'm very much looking forward to that one. But in terms of the humor of this film, it is very crude. It is near the mark. And I've got to say, the balls on Sacha Baron Cohen, not just him as well, but the guy who plays Azamat, like some of the stuff they do in this film, if you can imagine yourself in that situation, trying to do a prank similar to that, absolute hats off to them for just having the balls to go out and do that in the street, in public or whatever. But this came out around the time where I was watching similar kind of comedies to this. I was watching Jackass, Balls of Steel, Dirty Sanchez, stuff like that. That's that very crude, real life kind of person, candid camera kind of stuff. And I always found that funny, and it's always near the mark. And it's always one of those films where there are moments where it is very cringe inducing, and you are sort of like watching the film through your fingers. You want the ground to swallow you up, but it's also brilliant at the same time in the humor. And that's exactly what this movie delivered. There's loads of memorable bits in this film for me. All the Pamela Anderson stuff, especially at the end, which is like the big finale. There's some fun little sight gags as well, which I really appreciate. The bit where they've got the bear in the back of the van, and then later on in the film, you see Azamat go to the fridge and you see the bear's head in the fridge. It's just little bits like that. It's really difficult to talk about a comedy before sort of going down the trap of saying, and this scene's brilliant, and this scene's brilliant. But it's truly so great, and it flies by. This film's about 84 minutes. I watched it today. It felt like an hour. It just absolutely whizzed by. And I think that's the right length for it. I know that the new one's about 10 minutes longer, but it's in that sort of like 80 to 90 minute kind of ballpark. I think that's a good length for it. I think any longer and it would outstay its welcome. And I think Bruno's roughly around the same kind of runtime as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think that was really big with this, is that because of how perfect a runtime is, I don't think there's one bad sketch as such in there. I think there are some that aren't as funny than the others, but even some of the weaker ones as such are probably better than 90% of things comedians do. So I've kind of got into Face Jacker recently over lockdown, and I never seen, and I had a blast. And there are some outrageously incredible things in there. And there's also some that just don't work. And they'll work for others, but not for all. And I think that's the strength of this film, is that it's 1 hour 24, but everything he's putting in there is probably only the things he thinks are perfect. There's probably dozens of hours of footage he's probably there's probably stuff that's too bad even for this. And that's, I think, the beauty of it, that because he never outstays his welcome, I'm not saying it leaves you wanting more, because it's the perfect amount of time. But for them to say we want a Borat 2, and even that's like, oh, do we need a Borat 2? Ultimately, no, but also at the same time, yes, with everything happening right now. It's just that kind of like injection of comedy that I think the world needs. And I think that's where the strengths of this are, is that Sacha Baron Cohen probably knows when enough is enough. And I think that's why this works so well. And I think also, didn't he say that Borat was too famous to retire at one point a couple of years back, that he couldn't bring him back because everyone would recognize him?
Well, that works into the plot of the new film as well, in that he's going through the streets as Borat and everyone's going, oh, that's the guy, because of how famous he is. So I think that works into the plot. He has to go in disguise for the majority of the film.
And I think that's really important for this, is that he's aware. If we'd have had loads of Borat over the last 14 years, we'd be sitting there saying, oh, God, another one. But because he's been specific with how he's used his characters, I mean, Bruno's an interesting one that I found was really funny, but you got ones that didn't work, like the dictator, which, you know, you mentioned Borat doesn't have much of a plot. I don't know if it was yourself that told me yesterday, or if I was speaking to someone else, but Borat might not have much of a plot, and it's so focused on sketches. Bruno has a little bit more of a plot, still sketches. Then Dictator went for 100% plot, not really any sketches, and it backfired. And if Borat 2 is this more plot-orientated thing, then I really hope the sketches are as good a quality. But I think Sacha Baron Cohen's smart enough when to know. Again, when's enough with this character. And as you mentioned, the fact that there'd been like rumors of a Borat 2, I think even when this was announced, you'd said to me that you'd seen like something leaked. They think they'd seen him in a car or something. And obviously there was the big country festival in lockdown, which I wonder if it's in this film. If it is, that's incredible. If not, that's just probably like a deleted scene we're going to get one day. But I just think it's incredible. Going back to this at an older age when you wouldn't think it'd be funny, I think it's just a really sort of, it's just nice, because comedies are very hard to talk about, and comedies can age very badly. There are so many great comedies that I just seen years ago, and you click them on, it's just, oh Christ almighty, like, how did I find this funny? And it's nothing personal. It's just not yourself growing up. It's just life moves on, and it's nice to be able to go back to something like this. And it's weird that I think this is an outright classic. I know it's only been 15 years, but if you're going to staple some of the greatest comedies ever, I think this could easily be in that. I want to move on to mockumentaries. I don't know if it's for ages, but the mockumentary genre to me is my favorite style of comedy. My favorite sitcoms, Parks and Rec. I love both versions of The Office. When mockumentary is done right, I don't think written comedy is anywhere close to it. I think there's such a gift to it. It needs to be perfect. And I think this had this. I don't know why. I don't know how. I think that's probably what a lot of people said in 2006. But this film has everything you need.
I think it's a fine line with a mockumentary, especially when you sort of get into like the improv kind of side of things, because I've seen loads of comedies where you can tell it's improv and it just goes on and on. It's like, okay, this should be cut. And this is what you mentioned. This one does cut. It knows when to cut it. It knows when to move on to the next thing. And I think that's integral with this, because yes, it comes from the mind of Sacha Baron Cohen. He writes these sketches, he organizes these events and everything, and knows exactly where he needs to go and what he wants to get from people. But a lot of the humor is met halfway by whatever reaction you're going to get from a member of the public. You know what I mean? So it is that perfect balance with this film. Got high hopes for the second one. I don't want to go into it with like massive amounts of hype if it's not as good as this one, but I've heard very good things about it so far. And as I said, we're less than 24 hours away from it. I'm going to try and get it watched tomorrow if I can. And as you said, like, we'll have a review out either very late over the weekend or maybe just into next week. We'll have a review on it for definite, because it is one that we want to talk about. And definitely in 2020, where we've had barely any movies for obvious reasons, I think it's going to be like a nice sort of, it's just what the doctor ordered. I think we need a good comedy that pokes fun at the well, the real life political satire that's going on at the moment. And I think that movie's going to deliver. So I think we've pretty much said everything that we can on Borat. I know it's a fairly short review, but it's a comedy. They're very difficult to talk about. There's not loads you can talk about it. But we want to hear from you guys. What do you think of Borat? Have you watched it recently? Do you think it still holds up? Like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And let us know if you're excited for Borat 2 as well, if you've got high hopes for that film. To see other reviews and other videos that we've got planned as well, be sure to go onto our Facebook. You can just type in Cinema Savvy and find us on there. We're also on Twitter at cinema_savvy. And if you would like to pick up any more merch, we do have a few t-shirts on there, a few different logos. Just go to the TeePublic link down in the description down below. We do have some big video ideas planned, especially for Halloween. So as I said, go to all of those places to check out for more information on there and times when we go live. And do hit the bell icon as well, because sometimes we are quite sporadic with these reviews and you'll just get that notification when it pops up. So that'll do it for our review on Borat, and we will see you. Probably our next video is going to be Borat 2. So we'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.